everybody, welcome back to Rinks Garage. On today's episode, we're going to be building ourselves a little shop tool. We need to make a hood, some other stuff for the snowblower, so I'm going to go ahead and build something I've wanted to build for a while, I just never have. And that's going to be a sheet metal brake. So I got some steel here. Now, you can buy pretty cheap brakes online and wherever, but they're only good to bend in like 20 gauge or 22, and that's pretty thin. I want something I can bend, 12 gauge stuff. I got a lot of scrap 12 gauge laying around, seems like, and none of them ones you can buy that are cheap can bend that stuff. So basically what we're gonna do, we'll put a couple hinges on this, and this will be the bottom of our bender, so this will pivot up like this to bend, and then we got some more steel for the top piece that'll clamp down, and some angle iron that'll get welded on top of that and on bottom of here just to hold it rigid. I'm hoping this thing will be heavy enough if you want to go ahead and bend a piece of 1/2 inch rod or 3/8 rod, or even a 1/4x2 strap. It should be heavy enough to do that, which the ones you can buy cannot do that unless you spend a couple $1,000s. So we'll get all set up here and see what we can do. I don't have any plans or anything, so we'll see what happens. All right, so the basic plan is we got these two pieces. I got them marked out 3/8 and 1 inch deep. So I got a couple bolts that I just happen to have laying around with some bushings that fit. So basically I'll cut the head off this bolt, and then we'll notch these two plates out on each end, and we want that pivot, center of the pivot, to be the center on top here, so when this folds up, it bends the metal nice and straight. So I'll cut the head off, we'll cut this out, get this all squared up in there on that center point, and then we'll weld this to this one, let it stick out the side, and then basically on the ends I got a couple pieces of angle iron. That'll be our end plates. So this piece will be welded solid to here, and then we'll put the hole in with this bushing, and then this piece will pivot in here, and of course we'll have our handle underneath to bend. So that's the next thing we gotta do, is get these notched out, get the bolts cut off, and then our top piece also will have a notch in it so it doesn't interfere with our hinge. So we'll notch this out a little longer because we'll have a welder on there. So these are 36 inches, so basically our usable bendable surface area is going to be somewhere around 32, which will do most things. It'd be nice to have a full 4-footer, but then you're talking a lot stiffer metal, a lot more. So, and I kind of want to have it be portable somewhat, since I don't have a lot of room in here. So we'll get these cut out, and we'll get some holes drilled in these angles and see if we can get her squared up and welded in. Alright, we got all our pieces trimmed out, holes drilled, cleaned up. So I got my little cutoff bolt, got that marked on the center line, so we'll get him tacked in. Probably just do a tack in the corner and then get it as square as we can. This bushing does have a tiny bit of slop, so kind of just going to eyeball it. That'll get us close enough. And basically this will slide on there, and we can weld them along there solid, so then this will swing freely. So swing around to the other side and just repeat the same thing over here. Now we can weld these on, and then we'll get our angles and we'll kind of clamp it in there and make sure it's going to swing. We can always open up the center gap just a little bit if we need to, if it lines up. So get the angles mocked up and get them tacked on. So we want to get our two pieces pretty flat with each other, which right there is pretty good. I'm going to leave just a tiny gap in between just to lessen the chance of it binding. Slide that on there, and this angle will just get welded to the back, so I'll tack it and then we'll try and square it up as best as we can, and then one of these on each side, and then we can put our legs to the floor off of this piece also. So. Actually pretty square right there. now we'll repeat that on the other end. And then we can see if she's gonna spin. If it looks like it's gonna be okay, then I'll go ahead and slide these bushings in. We'll weld that to this angle just to give it a little more spot for it to turn. So I'll get that other angle on and then we'll see if it works. So we got our angles tacked on both ends. She does bind a little bit right at the top, but I think it'll wear in. So we can finish welding our ends on and get these bushings slid on and tacked in each end. And then we can move on to getting our angles welded on, handles for the, so basically we'll have an angle underneath here just to stiffen it, and then a handle to bend the metal like that. So I'll get these ends burned on and move on to the next part. Alright, we got her welded on. I got her flipped upside down right now, so the next step, I got a couple angle irons that I'm laying down on each flat. So this one, the stationary one, will get tacked on each side and welded to the end plate. And then on the side that flips up and down, of course, we'll just tack that on each side here, just for some added strength. And then I got some rods, so basically we're going to make a little bridge over each one, and we'll have an adjustable bolt in the middle. That way if this does get a bow in it, we can adjust it either way and get that bow nice and flat. So we'll get these two angles welded on, and then we'll have to do a little bending on that bar to make the little bridge with the bolt in the middle. Alright, we got the bottoms all welded on. So we got the rod welded over top, and then we got a bolt with a nut so we can adjust this nut to pull any bow out of that flat surface that we need to. And then this will just strengthen it up if you're bending a piece in the middle. It's much less likely to bow. Then I went and welded my handles on, so them will be the ones you grab to bend the metal up. So next, I think we're going to put some legs on it. We'll flip it over. I got some angle iron, make 4 legs and a couple pieces across the bottom, and we can get it standing on the floor before we put the top piece on. So we'll get some angles cut up for the legs. Alright, got some legs welded on, tacked on, and I got some other pieces cut. So basically we'll have a piece running across the bottom on each side, and this one will be right down at the ground. so that when you're bending you can stand on that, keep it from tipping it over. Then a piece across the end. This angle iron is probably a little light, but I got a whole bunch of it, so hopefully it works. But we'll get them welded on, and then we can move on to getting our top press piece on. So you can stand on here and bend up like that. So we got our legs welded on. It's actually pretty sturdy. It's got a little wiggle side to side, but that's not a big deal. So next we got our top piece that'll sit in here, that'll clamp the metal down. And this will get an angle on it just like the rest of them. With the rod on top, the bolt, same as the bottom two. And then we'll weld off a little piece over here and we'll have a hole with a nut welded on it. And then this top piece will have a slot in it. So depending on the thickness of our metal, we can move this top piece this way, because when you bend it up, you got to have room in there for that steel. So this piece needs to be adjustable, so we're just going to weld a plate on with a slot, and then we can set this wherever we want it. But we're now to the part that I was dreading, because we need to bevel this whole edge this way. Because when we're bending metal, we're going to want to probably bend it over 90 a little bit to get a 90, because there'll be a little spring back. So basically I got to take the grinder and take this edge off all the way down to a point on the bottom. I'm not going to go complete 45. I don't know that I'll ever need to bend anything over 90 too much. So being my angle takes up most of the top, I'm just going to probably go a quarter down to nothing. Give us a little angle so we got some room to overbend it. So I'll grab the grinder and start grinding. Alright, we got the bevel on there. I welded the angle iron on top. Got that angle on there so we can bend it a little over 90. So next thing on the agenda, I got some flat steel. I'm going to cut 2 rectangles out of that, and that'll get welded on the top here, overhang, and that's where our hole will be. We'll weld a nut down here, have a hand crank on each side to tighten her down. So we'll get these cut out and welded on, and then we'll just get the handles built and get them installed, and we'll be almost wrapped up. See if she's gonna work. So. All right, I think we're done. So I did pick up some springs. So we got a spring under each side here, so that when you back this off, this will lift up to make it easier for getting metal in there. Put some crank handles on to tighten her down. And I did put some backstops on it too, so depending on the thickness of metal you're bending, you want to keep a certain gap here, so when you bend it up, it's going to try and push this back. So these here you can wind up against there to set your depth, keep it from pushing it back. So other than that, I guess we can try her out and see if she works. So set up here. So first I got a piece of, I don't know, it's about 5 inches wide, probably, I don't know, it's about 1/8 inch thick. So do a line on her, we'll stick her in there first. Basically we'll line up our line. That's still hot. Tighten our clamps down, then we should be able to gotta go a little more. So it's not a perfect bend like a normal brake would be, but it's for sure good enough for what I need. And it bent pretty easy, so I think you could probably bend much wider of this thicker stuff in there. And then I got some 050 aluminum. That's pretty close to full width. And this one we're going to want to adjust forward. I still gotta oil everything up a little bit. So, him on the line. Alright. Works real good for that. Put a real nice bend in that. So, I think she's gonna work just fine. So, I mean, I had a lot of this scrap metal. I don't, altogether, if you went and bought it, you definitely wouldn't have $100 in it, so. There she is. All right, that's gonna do it for today's video. We'll definitely try this thing out next couple days, bending up the hood for the snowblower. So I think she's gonna work well. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.